Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Topic Time with Harrison Young, the first December edition in Easton. I hope you guys all had a great Thanksgiving. I just want to say that Topic Time went to a new frontier yesterday. I actually did my first show from Australia at my Area 58 location, and it was wonderful. The woman was an author that I had. She said she flatlined, and then she got sent back to Earth to live her life out and appear on Topic Time with me. So everything happens for a reason, as I always say. And again, I have an author tonight. He's a little more local. He's from the area. He's actually from Northeastern originally. He lives in the Cape now, but he came back here to do the show tonight. And I want to thank you guys very much. And on that note, I will now introduce Mr. Robert Fitton here.
Thank you. Harrison, thank you very much for having me on your show. And coming back to Easton, it's like going full circle from where I started out in my life and ended up down the Cape, and now I feel like I'm back in Easton here today.
And you really are back in Easton here today.
Literally, when I talk about my hometown, I'm here.
Yeah, and it's a great hometown. And you can tell the fans just real quick what you said to me as after when we assembled this afternoon about my show.
Well, your show is something that's unique.
Oh, it's nice to hear.
And it's also topical, as
the title indicates.
The title indicates that it is topical. So that drew it to me. But really, the snapping of the fingers got things going.
But between the two of them, it's a total barrage of wonder, isn't it?
Right. I mean, it's cool, is what it is. They used to say that in the day.
Great term. You can't argue with a simple and concise term as cool.
Our cool cat.
As the Fawns A would say, I guess,
right.
Back in the day.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now all right. Now now we do what I do with every guest. Now that now that the accolades are done, and the people of Easton remember you, and now they remember me because I've been doing the show here for 3 years. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about you. So tell me about, now you're an author and you've written you tend to write very imaginary books, mostly in science fiction and of that genre.
But I've gone into mystery and some topical stuff too. And I didn't really start out that way.
Well, let's talk about that. What did you start out as?
When I was a kid, I wanted to be a baseball player. That's all I thought about. Anybody that knows me from way back when would say, oh, yeah, he played Little League, he was a baseball player, and that's all I thought about.
And you did it right here in Easton, right?
I did it right here in Easton, and played Little League here up on the plain. Used to be the Plains up in Easton. Okay. And now I believe there's apartments.
Are you talking about like Frothingham Park?
Later on, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then, we all played sports back here. And
high school, did you graduate OA?
OA in 1969.
Oh, you're a little older than me. I wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. So it was a great place to grow up, and it was a place that a lot less restrictive than things are now. You had carte blanche to go out and have a good time as a kid, and I think that's a good thing.
Well, I think Easton hasn't changed that much, in terms of the nightlife. It's pretty quiet here.
Yeah. The downtown has changed. I noticed driving in.
I guess it has. There are small businesses up,
very nice.
But it's changed for the good. I mean, there's nice restaurants there. There's a pizza restaurant there. I don't know how long ago that was. The train museum. My nephew, who's now a freshman at OA as we speak, he just started.
And some of the schools are now housing.
They're housing?
Where we went to school, like the grammar school is now housing, and I believe over by the junior high school is now housing too.
Are you talking about over where OA is?
No, where the yellow building is in the center of town.
Oh, I see what you mean. Right, that used to be the junior high school.
Yeah, we went to junior high school.
Okay, I didn't know that. I thought it was, I guess it wasn't Lothrop Street like it is now.
And before me, it was high school before that, so they graduated.
Oh, it was? See, I didn't know that. I thought, so OA, that used to be OA then?
It used to be OA way back in the day, like the 30s.
Oh, okay, interesting. Well, I'm getting a history lesson here about Easton. And I live in Brockton, right over the town line.
So it's a great place to grow up, and I really didn't have the idea I was going to become an author.
Okay.
Or an audiobook.
Everything happens for a reason.
An audiobook narrator.
Yep.
Something does happen for a reason, because I remember we got introduced to a green-eye tape recorder. You know what those were?
Green-eye tape recorder?
And it had reel-to-reel.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't know what they called it green-eye, but yeah, of course.
Right, and I became fascinated with that.
Okay.
And I started doing audio like crazy. Wherever I'd go with my friends, I'd have the microphone out. We'd do parodies on my friends. And all sorts of things right through high school. And now, as I got older, it got transmitted into audio books. And it really does come from that genesis of, learning all that here and having a good time with everybody with a tape recorder.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. Well, so you're talking about you actually used to create scripts of sci-fi parodies and mysteries when you were a
Not
kid?
really sci-fi, but more like
more like
individual
reality
people
stuff.
here in town.
Yeah.
Who,
Well, you do like
were
interviews
still my
and stuff?
friends afterwards, believe it or not. But
Of course they would be. I know you busted their butts, but they still your friends. I know.
Right.
That's what friends are for.
Right, but you say things happen for a reason. Back then, you're not saying to yourself, "Oh, you're going to do audio on books." Are you kidding me? You know, but that's the way it worked out. I started that from proofing my books.
Okay.
And I would, just read it out loud to see if it's correct. Then I started exaggerating the characters. And before I knew it, I was narrating a book. And I said,
Wow.
well, wait a minute. I bet I can narrate these books. And because who else knows better than me what I meant and what I meant to say?
So basically, you're saving the reader some work. All they have to do is listen to you
Well, if you're in the
instead of reading.
car or
Yeah, right.
just around the house and want it going,
Okay.
And I added some sound effects on some of them too.
Wow,
But
I didn't know you did that. I thought everything was just regular books.
But it was
Okay.
fun. It's
Yeah,
fun
yeah.
to do that. You get into these characters and the voices just come
Yep.
as you're narrating. You say, well, what am I going to use for that guy for a voice? And when you start reading it, all of a sudden you know what the character, what their emotions are, and the voice sort of comes.
Okay. Well, tell me about the type of books that first of all, now you started, as a kid, you've already felt that it was important to use sound as a tool for your writing.
Sound is a tool, and I'd always be doing not imitations, but empathy with somebody would say something and I kind of flip back, imitating that type of thing.
Okay.
But I think that was more getting into a character, which I didn't know at the time.
Right. But in a way, it
How
was
are you
building
to know?
your literary aperture, if you will.
That's a good
Thank you.
term. Exactly.
Yeah, I was a writer too.
If I had my notebook here, I'd be writing that down.
Feel it right. Go ahead, write it down. You can take credit for it.
But it wasn't until I got into college and I was in a course.
What college?
Up at UMass in Amherst.
Okay.
And I was majoring in American Studies, which is American history and political science.
You weren't a party animal there, like everybody else?
No, I got that out of my way. I took some time off from school because of that.
Oh, okay.
And then when I went back to school, I was serious.
Okay, good.
And I think that works out for a lot of people. That happens. They
Well,
go
good. I
back
mean, you had a good attitude going in.
Yeah.
It's a very nice area. I know the town.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Hiking up there. I would have stayed up there, but I ended up going to LA because of outside sales.
Okay.
But getting back to what I was saying, you want to be able to write. Okay. So I'm writing this, supposed to be a 2-page story about the Native American Indian.
Okay.
All of a sudden I'm typing and typing and typing. What the heck? This is, I'm pretty good at this. And all of a sudden I'm 10, 12 pages out and I do a couple drafts on it, turn it into the professor, and he's ecstatic.
Wow.
He can't believe it. And all of a sudden I say to myself, I know how to write, and I kind of let that go by the wayside. And I started in on a novel a little bit later, a Star Trek novel.
Wow.
I was a big Star Trek, the original series fan. And I said, I'm going to write a Star Trek novel. I know all the trivia.
Did you have to buy the rights from Gene Roddenberry?
Well, that has a whole story behind it.
Okay.
But what I did was I sent it down to New York and got an agent.
Okay.
And if you know anything about Seinfeld, this would be like
I know all about Seinfeld.
all right, this would be like George Costanza getting an agent. All right, this is Louis, the literary agent.
Okay.
You can just imagine where this guy ended up bringing me. But he originally put the stuff out to Bantam Books, to all the publishers down there. It didn't sell. It had a little bit of a problem with the parameters.
Okay.
And over the course of time, I think Louis just didn't do his job. So that's when I went into trying to do other stuff.
Okay.
And I ended up selling books out of Palm Pilots at the turn of the century here.
Okay, books that you wrote.
Books that I wrote, we put them in, I had a firm out on the West Coast, and you put them into Palm Pilots and people would be buying them and they'd read them before the Kindle.
I should know this, but what exactly are Palm Pilots? Are those things that you can just hold in your
Palm
palms?
Pilots were like a BlackBerry,
Oh, computers.
Yeah,
On
yeah.
computer, online
Yeah.
books.
Yeah.
Got it. Wow.
Well, we're only 20 years out, but you're right. Things change so fast.
Yep.
It's incredible. So then I went into the publishing on demand type of thing.
Okay.
And when Amazon decided that they were going to go with paperback books and Kindles, I switched everything over there. And then I became in full control of it. And I could be able to narrate the books at the same time.
Wow.
And that puts me in the driver's seat where I'm not, like you might be sending 20 rejection slips going out. Now, this way you've already got a forum. You can make your own advertising and blurbs and everything else, and you're in charge of it, which is really good.
That is great.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that's why you went out to LA to sell your own books.
I went out to LA just to get a sales job.
Okay.
Because,
but in addition to your writing?
Yeah, I did my writing.
Well, what did you sell?
I sold paint out there. I was a paint rep for LA for a paint company. Yep.
You're talking about house paint?
Paint.
Oh, like this,
paint,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, don't forget, when the show is up, people aren't going to see the green screen. They're going to see probably a scenic outdoor eastern scene behind us.
They can pretend I'm knocking over a bucket of paint then.
Okay, just so everybody knows that. I think everybody knows that we have a green screen.
I thought of that myself after I did it.
But. All right, that's awesome. Okay, so that was. What did you major in at UMass?
American Studies and History. My parents were always big history buffs. Brought us around to the country to all the battlefields and things like that.
Okay, when you were growing up, they took
you
around.
So when I write time travel novels, it's American history is what I'm doing. I'm bringing people back in time, and I'm creating a sci-fi plot, maybe with some aliens and things like that.
Okay.
But it's basically American history that
okay, so what about futuristic stuff? Do you write about that as well?
Yeah, most of these aliens come from the future, and they're causing havoc in the future, and they end up coming back to whatever we are, 1939 at the New York World's Fair.
Right.
You got these beings that are back there that don't like the way technology is going, and they've come from the future to destroy people. So,
wow.
But then you got the history of the fair at the same time, which is what I like.
Okay.
And did a similar thing in 1927 with Babe Ruth.
Babe Ruth, 16 home runs.
27 Yankees and all that. Yep. That's mixed in with a whole bunch of other alien stuff too, which makes it unique. You don't usually see.
Oh, okay, right.
That.
You dwell in the original. You mix stuff together that in and of itself
and
is
you have
original.
To be careful. You have to be careful
because you don't want to lose your credibility.
Yeah, you took it right out of my mouth. Yeah,
that's what we do.
Yeah,
I didn't mean to take it out of your mouth, but you know what I mean,
okay.
Right?
So I started out with the time travel books and some sci-fi, but then I went down to the Cape Cod Writers Conference.
Okay, it must have been awesome.
And I went there maybe 5 or 6 times. And I got to meet with Orson Scott Card, who was probably the leading sci-fi guy in the country.
Wow.
And when he said to me, "You obviously know how to write,"
okay,
I went ballistic. I said, I guess this is doing what I wanted to do,
That's right.
And I also had a course with a mystery writer down there, Sally Gunning, and then the head writer for Murder, She Wrote, Tom Sawyer. And he
not Angela Lansbury.
Well, Angela wasn't available that day.
Okay,
but he would slice and dice your work. That's what you want him to do.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
I know. I've done writers' workshops too. In 1990, at first I took Mike Hurley's course in 1989. As I told you, we published my book of short stories 10 years later.
Yep.
And that was an easy course because we had people from the area, and we had fun with it. The critique wasn't too tough. And if you take a course like that, you meet a lot of people that are very creative.
Right.
People have no idea how creative they can be.
You don't want people to be singing your praises so much that you
miss
I know that.
mistakes
you're making. And I think
people gave
good
good critiques if they felt that somebody was, should have made it differently. Then they would tell them, and it's not. And nobody took it personally. That's correct.
That's beneficial. Yeah, because I think with some of my early work, which is free on the site, is that I did not have that critical analysis. And for me to work on that stuff now would take years to try and fix all that. So I just put it on audio, put it on the site, and it's free for all my early stuff, including that first story from UMass where I wrote.
What about the Indians? About the Native Americans.
Oh yeah, the Indians. That's on there.
We should be calling them Native Americans.
Well, actually, most Indians want to be called Indians.
They do?
Yes, from polls
except in the Washington area.
Except around the Beltway there.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that's on there too, and then I got into some just human interest type of books and espionage books and things like that. There's a ton of stuff up there, and I took an early retirement actually to get all this together because I had so much.
Okay.
I was constantly writing. The work day would end with sales, and I'd pull over the side of the road, and before laptops, I'd be writing.
Wow.
And then with laptops, I'd start that way.
You never got pulled over because you were pulled over by the side of the road? Was it safe? You weren't like on the highway, were you?
I made sure I was okay.
Okay, in rest stops, hopefully.
Right.
Because you could, you could.
Right, I know that sounds a little,
No, if that's when that's with the riding bike hit you, that's when you had to take advantage of it.
Yeah, I'd be in a safe area, yeah.
Okay.
Or early in the morning, late at night, that type of thing, whenever you could write. I think you do get that writing bug.
I know you do. I've had it many times.
Yeah, where you really, you see you're accomplishing something and you want to
I
keep
just
doing
posted on Facebook that I have like a photographic memory for dates. So 52 years ago, on November 28th, 1969, the year you graduated, I was 10. So you must be like 70 now.
Yeah, I saw you. I said,
yeah. Well, I wrote in 1969 on Friday, November 28th. There used to be a shoe store in Brockton downtown called The News, and I went in there, and Brockton used to be Shoe City, if you know Brockton.
Absolutely.
You know that story. Okay. Yeah. So I went in there, and they were looking for an essay in about 15, 20 words or less, whatever it was, why Ked sneakers are the best. I wrote it, and I won a camera. It was a piece of crap,
yeah.
but the fact that at 10 years old I was able to win a prize for my writing.
When you get that affirmation, it really, really
helps.
helps.
It felt great. I mean, I ended up trashing the camera about 2 days later, but just because it wasn't working. But just the fact that I won something.
Those are pivotal points.
They are.
When that professor wrote the thing and told me all that, that's a pivotal point.
It is.
That I wouldn't have written that Star Trek without that. And if I didn't write the Star Trek, the other stuff wouldn't have come. I wouldn't have had the agent and stuff like that. So.
Okay, but now do you have an agent currently?
No, I'm in charge of this whole thing at Amazon. So it's at Amazon and Audible, and some of it spills over into Barnes and Nobles also. So
cool.
you can just click on it, and it's pretty self-explanatory on the web too.
Right.
You know exactly what you're
What is
getting.
it? Rob Fitton?
It'd be Robert P. Fitton, and it'd be fittonbooks.com.
Cool. Okay.
Or fittonbooks.org, either one.
So basically, that's your life right now, is just writing.
My life has been collating everything together and polishing it up for the last 8 or 9 years.
Okay.
I had so much.
I know, because 98% of writing is editing anyway.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, you go over it and say, how did I miss that? And when you read something back, you'd be surprised.
No, I know. And sometimes what you do, your best thing you can do is leave it for about 5 weeks and then read it again.
Yeah,
because it's almost like, because then you're not going to be, because then you're like doing a fresh start with it. It's like you're looking at it it's from a different standpoint.
One of the writers at that course actually said exactly what you're saying.
Yep.
Yeah, Sally Gunning. She said, you just let this sit, don't worry about it, and then come back to it.
Exactly. No, I know. I think that's what Ray Bradbury did too. You know, he was one of the greatest.
I saw him in person out in L.A. He spoke at a library in Glendora, California.
He was amazing.
And I got his books up there and got him.
So he was one of your inspirations, I guess.
Well, he was an inspiration and a groundbreaker. He wasn't afraid to write that stuff, and
What about Vonnegut? He was one of my. I read
Slaughterhouse
every book that he ever. I went in a tear in February of 1979. I read every freaking book he ever wrote to that point.
Yeah, he just was over the top.
He was.
He really was. And
I wrote him a letter once too. He never answered it. It was kind of over the top as well.
But Billy Pilgrim and that whole Slaughterhouse 5 thing, trying to decipher that. I'm still trying to decipher the time period and all that.
Well, that was the war.
Yeah.
World War II.
Yeah, Dresden.
Dresden, right. Bombing of Dresden. We saw the movie, September 3rd, 1972.
Yeah.
That's the day I told you I had a photographic memory.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, for my autism. That's what makes what I do so special, because I have autism.
Cool. Yeah.
All right, well, over the years, how many books would you say you've written and all? I saw the picture on your Facebook page. It looks like you had about 200 of them.
No, it's not that many.
No, I know, but
I'd say
with
the freebies, it's in the upper 40s somewhere. I don't know the exact count. But, and again, the freebies are good just to get the gist of my style.
Right.
It may have been a little rough the way it was written, but at that time. But the style is there, the plot is there, the aliens are there, and
wow.
It's good. Yeah.
Okay, now the thing is, whenever I'm reading a book about aliens, I'm always, it's very difficult, and I loved Lost in Space as a kid.
Me too, Dr. Smith.
Dr. Smith, he was a crazy man, and but the fact that you're traveling to a foreign planet and aliens are talking perfect English to you, that's freaky.
Well, you get a lot of translators out there.
You do, but I'm just saying that if you're gonna create science fiction that's credible, you got to figure out a way that they can do it. They can either communicate telepathically.
Well, I did that in a book called Sojourn.
Okay.
And that's a huge book. It's like, it starts out on Earth and ends up going to the Earth's predecessors on other planets. And they're the Creods, not the Creons.
Okay.
They're the bad guys. And the bad guy is Sard. And Sard is speaking in his own native language. Well, the two guys that are listening to him have been processed.
Okay.
Remember you said they've been processed so they can understand.
Right.
You have to do something like that or you have no credibility.
Exactly. Plus you got to remember the aliens are supposed to be advanced.
Right.
They're supposed to be able to understand every human language because they're smart. they're supposed to be smarter than us.
They're advanced, but these aliens end up being brutal at the same time.
Oh, of course they're brutal.
Yeah. If they weren't brutal, they wouldn't be a good
Yeah, right. They wouldn't be
nemesis,
interesting to write about. Exactly.
That's right.
I know.
That's right.
All right. Well, now let me ask you this: do you have any visions of the future in mind for a book that's, you know,
well,
I mean, can you envision Earth like 1,000 years from now? Do you have any idea? Just curious if you want to throw some ideas out.
I think where we're going now is something I addressed in that Sojourn book.
Okay.
And the aliens had actually put humans into these capsules in
wow.
virtual reality, and that's where they ended up. And I think there's a real
sometimes
danger.
virtual reality can be very pleasant if it's
it
done
can
well.
be, but it can also go the other way, and other people could control it.
Right.
You know, and I think that's the danger we have. We can go one or two ways.
Right.
We can go toward that transhumanism, where your body parts become like the $6 million man, and you go to an area where you're controlled, or you can go and use it, like you just said, and use it in a prudent way.
Right.
So who knows? It could go either way.
Well, before the show started, we were discussing that new robotic.
The little organism, like
the organisms that have been discovered by, or that have been perpetrated by the scientists that are supposed to help the human race, when in fact they may turn out to burn us in the end.
If there's a big question mark there, you got to ask yourself, why are they doing that? I mean, if you don't
I know
definitively,
they say it's supposed to help clean up the plastics out of the oceans.
Well, then what happens when it gets inside you? You know,
I don't know.
It's something, unless you know exactly. And in one of my books, I had the one philosopher saying "Nachdenken" in German, which means to think. And the whole process was to be able to think about what you're doing in technology. That was the one with the World's Fair. And the World's Fair promoted in 1939 all this great technology. But
that's right.
It's the same argument you're using now. You have to know where that's going, and you have to think about it.
That's true.
And people don't. The money comes first.
That's true. Well, I mean, it seems like every 20 years or so, a crazy event occurs that you never saw coming, and then it becomes a part of history. Nobody saw Watergate coming. Nobody saw Monica Lewinsky coming.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, that was really, off the wall. And nobody saw the virus either.
It's funny you should say that, because one of my central books I haven't mentioned is about the Kennedy assassination.
Okay.
And Stephen King wrote a book, 11/22/63, but he didn't footnote anything, and it came from sources from 60 years ago. And since then, there have been documents released. So things have changed in that area. So I have a trilogy I've written, The Kennedy Paradox, Return to Dallas, and the one I'm working on now, which is American Injustice. And it ties all that together as to why Kennedy was killed. But in the Return to Dallas book, it actually footnotes. If I say something, I'm not going to just say, well, Lee Harvey Oswald did this, or so. It's going to be footnoted. And
what exactly does that mean, footnoted?
It's sourced.
Okay, I see what you mean. Right.
You want a source on something like, because there are so many conspiracy theories out there.
Right, still nobody, after all these years, 58 years later, nobody's really, I don't think anybody knows how it happened completely.
Well, they got a pretty good idea. Some of the researchers now and some of the former government analysts know that the CIA and the anti-Castro Cubans were right in the heart of the thing, but it's the cover-up afterwards that is amazing.
It is.
That was the tough part.
It is tough because really nobody still knows. You say there's one thing to have a pretty good idea. It's totally another thing to have not exactly what happened.
Right, to have definitive, right. They're not going to leave notes around saying, well, this is how we did it. And,
right.
That's all gone. They did that by word of mouth, and they had programs already in place with the CIA on how to do that. They did that all during the 50s.
Right.
They overturned governments. Yeah. So they were experts. They were world-class experts, and I hate to say that because I really liked President Kennedy.
Oh, I know. I liked him too. I mean, I was only 4 when he was assassinated. So.
Well, actually, in that building we talked about, right up the street, we were at a dance at that building, and the principal came out and said, "I have some bad news for you." The music went off, and he said, "The president's been shot."
Oh my God, that's right. You were a kid. Right. You were like 12 then.
Right. We were concentrating on dancing, the girls out there, and everything, and this just floored everybody.
I'm sure it did. Wow.
Yeah, just floored everybody. So I think it's a good thing that I did source all that. I'm very, very happy. It took 2 years to do it, but
did you relate your own experience of you just?
No, I concentrated on this is a novel, so you got two people coming back in time and
I see.
Blah, blah, blah. But you also have if they surveil Lee Harvey Oswald, there's the footnote. This is how it happened. Here's how the testimony was, etc. And it's just not thrown out there for the heck of it. You know, there's a lot of that going around with that particular event.
Okay, well, guess what? We're down to the final 5 minutes of the show.
You're kidding.
We always make it go by fast. We always have fun on topic time. Okay, well, I hope you had fun with me.
I did. This was fantastic.
Thank you.
I'd like to do
if I
it.
could.
I'd like to do it on one book at some point in time.
What, my show?
Yeah, just talk about one book. Your choice.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay, that might work.
You know.
All right, well, if you had a good time with me tonight, what I always do now is I ask all my guests if they had fun. If you have any friends or people that you know that have interesting stories to tell, I'd love to get them on as guests.
Sure.
Have them text me. You got my digits now. Unfortunately, I forgot to shut my phone off, and I received 2 texts while we were doing the show, but they weren't too intrusive. It's a couple of dings. I think we'll survive.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's great. So before we wrap the show up, is there anything on the horizon that you want to mention that you might have overlooked that you got going on? If not, that's fine.
I think that the third novel in that trilogy, American Injustice, with the Kennedy assassination, because after that, Jim Garrison investigated the assassination.
Is that the one they made the film about, JFK?
Right,
the one
and,
in New Orleans?
The government came down on Garrison, and at the time, I thought he was a wacko.
He was the guy that was smoking the pipe.
But he wasn't.
Right.
He solved a lot of that issue there.
I remember that. It was back in 1966. That's when it was documented. I remember that.
Exactly.
So I went and saw that with my brother.
Yeah. And they made a fool out of him, but he was right.
Well, that's usually when you're right, someone is out to make a fool out of you.
Yeah, that's true.
Because they're darn jealous of you.
Yeah,
I've been down that road many times.
Well, thank you again for having me.
And thank you. You were an incredible guest.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Well, all right, folks. Well, that's it. We're going to wrap the show up. So the holiday season is upon us. Thanks for watching Topic Time. More great episodes to follow. See you next time. Have a good one. Bye-bye.